All right. So, I don't know if y'all just got that weird thing on your screen, but Rory, I had some weird things.
Yeah,
So,
I did that. That was like the start of it.
oh, so
You're right. You failed to schedule stream on some destinations. Which ones?
Mm.
well, we'll get started, Rory, as you figure it out, I
Yep.
guess.
Yep.
All right. So, everybody, welcome. My name is Katie Torbach. I am the president of 5051 Bets. Every Saturday night, we platform a candidate from around the country. And Jesse Alberti reached out to us. I reached out to him. I don't know how it happened, but he is running for governor in California. And so, Jesse, please introduce yourself to us.
I am Jesse Alberti. I am an assistant director for the Housing Maintenance Department at the University of California, Los Angeles. I'm starting with that because right after I say it, I have to add a disclaimer that says that the university doesn't support me running for the race of governor, and I am announcing my title only for the sake of identification purposes. Disclaimer out of the way. I have been a state employee for the last 27 years. I do a large amount of work for the university, and essentially my job is trouble fixer, right? Like I get put in charge of the departments that are failing or having problems. I fix them, and then I move to the next place. That's kind of been my shtick. Uh, that's me in a nutshell.
I'm going to ask you, are you a California native? Where did you grow up? How long have you lived there? Things of that nature.
I am not a native. I was born in Catskill, New York. I spent several years in New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, moving around a lot. My mom struggled to keep us housed. So there were good amounts of movement. And somewhere around 21, when the internet first started, I met a girl online in California, and I got a plane ticket and I flew out here. I was catfished a little bit. And I've been here ever since.
That's fun. Tom,
Hi,
you want to
Tom.
introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Tom, co-founder of Fight Against Fascism organization. The time in Iraq in 2009. Um, just hanging out with the fam.
Tom is a part of our organization is part of a larger alliance of veteran groups from around the country, and Tom has a great march at the end of February happening in DC, but we'll talk about that later. So let's get into you. So as a veteran group, we care about veterans, obviously. So I'm going to ask you some veteran related questions, because if you are elected governor of a state, you command the National Guard. Okay. So I am an MST survivor. I don't know if you know what that is. It's military sexual trauma. I was sexually assaulted more than once in my career. And in 2020, we and women veterans around the country stood up and helped get protections passed to help with sexual assault in the military. Most people think it's a women's issue, but the fact is more men are sexually assaulted in the military than women by numbers alone. What we are asking of every governor is if there is legislation put forth in your state that will help protect survivors of in the National Guard, will you sign that legislation?
Yes.
Okay. It's important to us. We see what's going on around the country. Fort Hood is back in the news again, and we hope that Governor Abbott will take any action he can within his powers. Next question about the National Guard, especially with where we are as a country, what's happening in multiple cities around the country right now. We see a executive branch that is deploying National Guard in cities in your state, as a matter of fact, and the violent uptick around that. Not only that, in California, there was active Marines deployed, which we know is against federal law, but that is not your purview as a governor. Your purview as a governor is your own National Guard. If Trump ever, or not even Trump, if any executive asked you to deploy your National Guard from California to a different state, would you?
No.
I'm glad to hear that.
I- Because you did say any president versus Trump,
Yes.
let me amend that to be a responsible answerer. Unlikely. If there were reasons that I legitimately believed our National Guard needed to go to another state, like assisting that state with a disaster or something else, I absolutely would authorize that. So I don't want to get stuck in a all or nothing basket. Sorry about that.
No, that was a good correction. Because as soon as I said that question, I was like, if there was a national disaster,
Right.
I want them to be sent. So no, good caveat and good catch. But with what's going on, especially with active Marines being deployed in California specifically, it is a worry for veterans groups around the country as that rhetoric upticks through, we have 2-3 more years of this, and then an election, a general election. Hopefully, we all hope so. let's we're keeping our fingers crossed over here. Like, we're not betting on it, but we're hoping for it.
Nope.
So let's get into some actually meat and potatoes of this. So we're going to go
Sure.
through some separate things. The first thing I'm going to go over is vision and priorities. What are your top 3 priorities for 2026?
If I get in the office, my first priority would be what you would expect any new boss at any new work site to be. Start learning the employees, start learning the workings, start checking the actual information. I know we have websites that display what's on for the state, but I would actually start going through files and records to make sure that we're on the same page, because I know how the state government works. I work for it already, and it's not always as clear as we'd like to believe that it is. So I think my first priority would probably be a few months of just getting my house in order. Once that was established, the 2 big ones that you've probably seen, because they were the ones we focused on first, were the insurance and the banking ones, because those can offer Californians some money, and not just offering money, but offering savings in money in ways that will help California. And my goal with those programs is to kind of reduce the cost, right? Like, the big hit we take for cost of living is a large effect. And then the third thing on that list is going to be housing. Not that medical isn't important, but it's a much larger target. And with the other pieces functioning, medical might be something we can target. And then electrical and water infrastructure is after healthcare, essentially. So that's like the top 5.
I like it. So the caveat off of that, to play devil's advocate, which we're really good at here.
Sure.
What issues would you intentionally delay or deprioritize to focus on those, on your focus ones?
I would probably put a lot of the stuff that most people are asking me to do for them immediately when I get into office. That stuff would be off to the side. I've been asked to change the law for classic cars so that they can drive more in California, because our laws are very restrictive. But California has a lot of car groups that do classic car get-togethers every week, and you can see them out at the parks and everything else. So it becomes a big talking point there. A lot of that frivolous stuff will sit and wait, and I'm sorry, that doesn't mean that it's not important, but we have like 7 or 8 real main issues that just keep being the issues now for every election cycle. I think just fixing those finally, so that they're not a worry for the next governor, would be my goal, right? And then we can do the fringe stuff, like, cars and bike riding and extra lanes and stuff like that.
I like it. What problem facing California do you believe current leaders most misunderstand?
Current leaders, meaning the leaders in office?
Yes. Like,
Okay.
What is what's a problem facing Californians today that you think leadership that's running the state right now just completely misunderstands and is missing the mark?
I don't think they don't understand. I think the system is broken. But leadership understands that, but is not willing to make any of the changes necessary to start fixing it. And that is also not an all or nothing at this point. Obviously, there's a few people in the government that are trying their best, but they are working against the rest of the people and the money. I think you're probably looking for more of a topic that they just don't understand. I think Newsom's doing a decent job dealing with the frustrations that Trump is creating currently. And I think that's probably the biggest thing they don't understand is how to combat him. And I hate using him as the focal point because I feel like Trump is just a puppet. I mean, I really love to just refer to Heritage Foundation and the entire Project 2025 as what they don't know how to deal with and what they're not really understanding, which is sad because there's a playbook for it, right? Like they've called out what they're going to do, and we're still not sure how to stop them from doing it. I'm thankful that the courts are carrying some of that weight.
I live in Florida. Florida is a dystopian nightmare. And whenever I hear from people in California, about your healthcare system and all the things that I don't have as a Floridian, is I do know that a lot of your policies take care of community better than other places in the country.
Right.
So how does your vision differ in execution, not rhetoric, from previous governors of the state?
I don't think my execution would. No, that's not true. My execution will look completely different. To be fair, I'm not going to know what the fuck I'm doing when we get in there, and so I gave you that first one for free. But that's like anybody. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger held the same position I'm applying for, right? Like, what did he know about politics beforehand? Probably as much as I have read, at least to this point. And then he paid a bunch of people to help him. I don't need a lot of people to help me. I'm very smart. I'm really good at problem solving, and I have the time and effort to put into this and care about it and make sure that it works the way that I want it to. I also don't care about most people's feelings. And when I say that, I mean in the sense of, if you're giving me bullshit, I'm just going to shut you down. I will remove you. I will push you into the side, right? Like, I need people that are going to help. So I think my decisions will be pretty snap. There will be a lot more compromise than what we're used to because, again, I'm not in anybody's pocketbook. So these are going to be offers made for, this is what I'm going to do. If you want to be on the right side of that, you can do X, Y, and Z. And if you can't do that, then, I mean, we've got a platform topic for modifying some of the tax loopholes for California. Like, one of our side plans, which wasn't on the platform yet as far as a priority goes, because it will be fought every step of the way, is what we talked about earlier. We want to take corporations back out of that money. Once we've done that, it will change a lot of the direction for California is our hope, but it really won't take an effect until after I'm gone, right? Because we'd still have to let those politicians wash their way out and start seeing new politicians without that money coming in. But if I could get that one thing done, I still feel like that would be enough. And we've also promised to keep this interaction. I meet with the community, which is very small currently, but we've talked about continuing the lives maybe once a month and making sure that we're talking to the people of California about what we're doing and hearing their feedback on what we're doing. So
I like it. So reading your platform, either I'm reading it completely wrong, or it seems that you're kind of an economic and fiscal policy kind of guy when it comes to taxes and things like that. So I wanted to ask you a few questions about economic and fiscal policy.
sure.
How will your proposals be funded? And what spending would you cut or reallocate?
It's a good question. We have talked about, and here's the other problem. Again, that first priority, not seeing the books. It's really hard to target ahead of time without making false promises, right? Like the problem I have with writing my platform is I'm not guaranteeing or promising anything. I'm just saying what I'm going to be working on. So it's really hard to do that without having the actual numbers, without having the actual information in front of me. So that is why house in order is first priority. Now, speaking just in general with what California does currently, we have talked about raising taxes for Californians, absolutely. But at that same breath, we've talked about raising corporate taxes and cutting those loopholes to start getting income from corporations again. Those two things enacted together, my hopes are will start bringing in enough money for us to fund the two programs that we talked about. And then my goal would be to, once those programs were up and running, the auto insurance one, the banks, and the home insurance one, that's three technically, but the insurance ones is kind of bonded. Once those three are up and running, I would then reduce the income tax that we raised for the Californians, but not the one for corporate. So we're hoping by year 3, we would end up reducing the tax we put in place to start the programs that are on my list. Now, if I get to a point where we can cut items in major money or take money that's been allocated for things that isn't being utilized properly, which I feel like there's a lot of money in California that is earmarked for projects that are pet projects for other politicians, we'll be probably disseminating a bunch of that stuff and just taking those back.
I like that. So I heard you say that like tax increases. So do you support tax increases or do you support restructuring or neither? Or what?
I live in California, so raising the taxes, I don't say lightly. I know we're already an expensive state. I think once money is assessed, we're going to take the steps that we need to put things in place. I'm going to be open to options that make it easier for Californians to live, right? Again, putting out there the corporations being taxed more and the loopholes going away, we have exchanges already set up for what that'll look like, because the immediate counter argument is, yeah, but then they'll just leave California. Okay, they can leave California. Any industry that leaves California can be replaced because we're California. And the benefit to that is we can replace it ourselves if need be. So we've talked about corporate rules where they get the tax, they end up maybe leaving. We have financial organizations typically are the ones that go first. When New York raised their corporate taxes, it was mostly hedge funds that left the state. Companies that don't actually benefit anything in the state except for the few employees that work for the hedge fund. So I don't think California is going to lose much, and then in that will be benefits that they can get. So we will create loopholes that we want them to have, not just money back. If you want your taxes to be lowered, employee wages need to meet this new minimum, right? And as long as you're doing that, then you get the tax break that the state will offer. So we'll create incentives for the corporations to offset the much higher tax and the loss of the other loopholes that they were using for things that help make California better, like raising wages, offering more positions, branching out into other developments.
So I like that concept of a livable wage and that it would somehow be tied to tax breaks by the state. I think that would create a streamlined system for larger corporations to be able to get the tax breaks, right, that they're going to want.
Right.
I guess my follow-up question to that is, how would your policies affect small businesses compared to large companies? Like, what is your threshold that you're going to set that out?
Hi. Sorry, my wife and my daughter are leaving for their Friendsmas thing. Bye. Have a good night, you guys.
All right. Have fun. Be safe. Don't talk to strangers.
Okay. Reset on the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. How would your policies affect small businesses compared to large companies?
Oh, okay. Got you. I don't know that any of my policies check on a marker where the separation is before small businesses escalate up. obviously we're not raising the taxes for small businesses, and the bank proposal on the platform idea absolutely will start benefiting more small businesses in California. Essentially, we have a platform topic which already exists. Like, I'm not the brilliant genius that came up with it. We have two different bills, AB 847 and AB 1177, which see, I'm getting good enough to just spew off bills. Look at that. I was looking at them tonight, to be fair. But so both of those bills are already in existence for California. One is like 8 years old, and the other one's like 5 years old. And essentially what they set up was a similar setup to North Dakota that has its own state bank, right? Like, North Dakota has a bank that just works for the rest of the state, run by the state. It's where I found out about the idea and then started this little project for California. And then I ran into those bills. The first bill is for cities or counties to be able to create their own banks here in California. It exists already. You know how many we have?
No.
0.
No.
And then the second bill is a research and project funding, which came after the other bill, to do a statewide bank. Do you know how many statewide banks we have?
I'm going to say 0.
It's 0. Yeah. So we have these really well put together programs that would allow the state to start doing small business loans with the community's money. And if they make interest on that money, the bank can then reinvest that money back into the community. So for us, small businesses should be utilizing banks from the state that are making money for the cities and the counties that are providing them. But again, I'm sure the reason we're not utilizing that bill is because it's being fought against, or it's being paid for people not to push forward, or slowed, or delayed.
I did read because on your website, like I told you before we started, I went through your website.
Thank you.
I did. I clicked on everything on it, and so I found the banking thing to be very interesting, right? Because I have a problem with big banks making a lot of profit, but I do have two very specific questions about a state or city-run bank.
Sure.
The first would be, how would you prevent political interference or mismanagement in public banks?
Well, a public bank's going to be run by public employees, so state employees under our control. I mean, that we would conduct them as a good business opportunity and make sure that we were doing reviews just like banks normally do, I guess. I mean, I don't have a format that would say politically influenced by. I mean, it's not like somebody's going to walk into the bank and be like, I'm going to buy you today. So I owned and operated. I guess what you're saying is, could corporate fight the action?
No, I guess I should clarify the question.
Sure.
Like more poignant, because that was kind of broad. When I'm speaking about like political interference, right, is if you have I will give Jacksonville as my example that I told you about.
Right.
We had a city-owned utility here in Jacksonville that our mayor decided with a small group of people he was going to try to sell our city-owned utility. And now I'm not talking about selling the bank. I'm talking about corruption within political interference. How would that, I think, like from a standpoint of someone that believes in banks, but that is the place where people hold their wealth, and that if that is corrupt, a large swath of people will lose everything that they have. So how would you put in a safeguard to ensure that that does not happen?
Sure. All right. So California already has a bunch of transparency laws and requirements for keeping stuff posted online and being up to date. I would utilize those, but also personally verify that they're all actually working and up to date. I think that's got to happen in part of that cleaning your own house thing in the beginning. But I know that there are systems where those things are reported for us. So I think initially, especially at the startup of those banking systems, there's going to be a lot of eyes on them. And we've got to do it slowly. It's why we would only start with 2. I think that's listed in there. We talked about doing LA and San Francisco first, and make sure that it's actually running the way it's supposed to. Make sure we have controls over it the way we want. And then once we know that those are successful and functioning properly and not being sabotaged, then we would start rolling out some of the other ones for bigger counties. So
I find the concept fascinating. I really do. I worry about corruption just on a large scale because we see it in institutions that I mean, we're prior military sitting here, and we're not going to say there's no fraud in the military with tax money. And so
yeah,
it's just one of those things, especially when we hear banks laundering money for people. Not that I would think a state bank would. I'm just saying it's a possibility. How
I think because the shareholders are the constituents of the state, there's going to be an interest there every year about where that money lies. And I think the great thing about all 3 of those programs is any one of them could make money accidentally for the state, right? Like the bank can, and both the insurance buckets can. And if they do, that's just reinvested back into the state is the hope, right? Like, is that, yeah, I mean, if that bank is making, and if the bank is doing poorly, at least you'd be able to see the bank is doing poorly and hopefully understand why, with the transparency rules and keeping the money accounted for.
I'm here for it. Like, I would love to see it play out in California and then spread, right? It's kind of like New York City. I would love to see what's going to happen in New York, and then that kind of spread to larger cities across country as well. When we talk about insurance, you have a platform dealing specifically with auto insurance. I live in Florida. We drive like shit. Our insurance is through the roof. And our homeowners insurance is through the roof. Our car insurance is through the roof. And I'm sure y'all's is the same.
Right.
So we're compadres in that fight, my friend. So I would like you to explain your car insurance platform to us. And then I have some follow-up questions.
Sure. I mean, to save time, I'll relatively combine them because, like I said, they're 2 separate, but they're kind of in the same bucket. So, California provides both homeowners insurance and driver's insurance, but to the smallest percentage of Californians right now because it is a backstop. So California basically doesn't allow anybody to go without. So I think car insurance is 2 to 3% of California drivers is all we cover. And then home insurance is only for fire insurance not provided by insurance companies because we actually have insurance companies that insure houses out in California, but won't fire insure some of them depending on where they live. Now, both those programs already exist. They already have funding to cover the amount of people we cover. What we would do is open that up to, instead of it being the low percentages, we would open it up to about 85% of Californians. And that's my targeted figure. Nobody with financial analysts has gone over that. I mean, that may swing a little bit, but we were talking about 85% of Californians being able to pay for lower insurance and pay for lower home insurance for vehicle or for home. And then the idea is those are 2 separate buckets. So if the auto insurance ends up making California money, that goes back into infrastructure for roads and other things. For the housing, it goes back into fire prevention and forestry so that we can keep the areas better under control for fire prevention. But the idea there is we only need enough money to start it off once payments are coming in on a regular basis. So it's essentially where we talked about increasing income tax for the first year was to basically fund those programs. And then once they're established and Californians are utilizing them, we don't need the tax anymore. We have enough in the funding to manage at that point, and we can take the tax away and restore that back to Californians. So that's kind of the thought pattern behind the insurance plans. Now, corporate insurance would still be necessary. We would not insure over a certain point. So instead of being the stopgap to help the poorest of the poor people, we would make the stopgap. We're covering to the end of top middle class, and then everybody above that would go to normal corporate insurance companies and get their insurance still. Same thing would apply to larger organizations that had fleets of vehicles. They would go to larger ones.
So I guess one of the questions I have is like with that cap, like people would be able to still have their own insurance if they didn't want to have the state insurance, correct?
100%. So the state insurance would be just above basic. So it would be the coverage that you'd needed financially, but it wouldn't have a lot of perks, the auto one or the other one, because we're giving you the cheapest option you can have legally and have your insurance. Whereas if you want like free rental cars and other things, that then you're paying for a corporate account that covers you in other ways.
So, how would your insurance reforms avoid insurer withdrawal from the state of California? So if you have a large, let's say you hit the 85%, which would be amazing from a funding standpoint, especially if you could end up in the green at the end of the year, how would you, in Florida, we have insurance companies pulling out of the state all the time.
Sure.
And so how would you prevent that in California?
You're saying for the insurance companies to leave?
How would you prevent that?
We wouldn't necessarily. If you're talking about the corporate ones, there may be 2 or 3 that may decide that without those available resources that they don't want to compete in this market. Now that would at least help the other ones stabilize as they picked up people that were still not utilizing California's. But no, I expect some of my plans to absolutely have some businesses shut down and leave. I'm not encouraging it necessarily, but it's not a fear mechanism that's stopping us from making any change.
Small clap for, I think most insurance is a scam. I know it's useful in some instances, but
Yeah.
I went years without an accident and then had like 4 accidents in 2 years. So I do know it's useful. But yeah, so one thing I want to talk to you about is housing, right? Because insurance is related to housing, and
Yeah.
I am a builder. So that is what I do in real life. And I build high schools, but I was in the home building industry for a few years, and I
Awesome.
own a small plumbing company. So when we talk about the housing crisis is not only in California, we see it across the country. We see homeless veterans at an all-time high across this country right now, and people losing their homes every day, right? Because of the affordability crisis that we are facing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know the homeless crisis is multifaceted in a myriad of ways. From my end, as a builder, I will tell you it is a labor shortage and a materials issue. From looking at California and from everything I've read, and secret to everybody else, my aunt and uncle are in my house right now, and they lived in California for 25 years. So I asked them quite a few questions before I came on. One of the things they said about the housing crisis is the lack of space. So how do you fathom you're going to fix the housing crisis, given that there is a myriad of issues facing one crisis?
I mean, housing is huge. I agree, and I don't want to beat a dead horse on this one. So I think the things that are important for me for housing are making sure that we're pushing all of the. Again, we have a lot of bills that are already in existence that just are being legally stopped from being processed for housing to be built in California. The CEQA laws are a little tough. We've created bills and platforms, but we lose a lot of time fighting legally against each other, right? Like the NIMBYs versus the YIMBYs are, I want these people, I don't want these people, and then it just becomes a constant battle. I think the bills we have are in place well enough, but there's no negotiations going on, or the negotiations going on currently, like between the governor and the mayors of the different cities. Right now, LA County is actually pushing against what Newsom is doing for the, I'm not going to remember the bill number, but we have a specific infill bill for housing closer to public transit. And LA is fighting us, except LA is one of our worst cities for housing. We need to get past a lot of these legal issues and actually be able to put up housing. as far as space goes, our occupied cities are less space available for infill, but there is a lot of growth opportunities still in California. We are huge, and the Central Valley has tons of space. One of the programs that we're still working on, writing up for the platform, is the homeless one. We've talked about creating something like California City. And if you don't know the background behind California City, it was essentially designed ahead of time, and then somebody bought to make it happen, right? Literally just, what's the word I want to use? Donated a bunch of money to create the lake that started the city and then built the city to this guy's design. We want to do something similar to that, but on a smaller scale and let it grow. We want to create a city essentially for homeless, to be able to come to in waves and be rehabilitated medically and physically, get to a point where they're secure and feeling like they are no longer in survival mode, and then training them to do a job type that they are interested in that still applies for the locale, and then start utilizing those workers to start building other things, kind of like your school, right? Like, but to start with housing and then some small businesses and then some other stuff. The big issue I've run into repeatedly is, again, starting with that legal battles, right? Like, a lot of people don't want these communities dumped into their community. It makes them terrified. And trying to argue against somebody trying to keep their area safe is hard to do. So we thought it would be better to actually create an area where these people could come in and then be supported by people that are already there, that have already gone through the program, that have already been in that situation. Because I think a community of formerly homeless people are going to be definitely invested in making sure that the other people coming in are treated the right way and are brought up with patience and kindness and empathy that they have because they went through that same similar situation. So we have target plans to push for housing in the areas that we need to, and we also have some homeless plans to create landscapes that make sense for them, and a place where you could send people to where they're away from people that are shunning them already and should be around an environment where people would be supportive.
We, as veterans, we would love to see every veteran housed around this country. Given the homeless veteran crisis is at an all-time high. But housing, everything that I read about California and the housing issue and read about your laws, it seems to be a permitting issue as well, if I'm not mistaken, especially after all the fires, that there are permits that have still not been approved. And I know that that is a city issue and not a governor issue. Do you fathom, as someone that lives in LA, and I'm not sure if you were affected by the wildfires, but I'm sure the people whose homes burnt to the ground that still have not been rebuilt and don't have a permit would probably be coming to the governor's office for help. So what is your, do you have an idea of how to help streamline the process of permitting in the state of California, specifically in LA?
Well, I think there are trade-offs that we have to make, right? Like, I think the politicians have to be capable of talking to each other and working on stuff. We have houses in Altadena that are actually are in legal battles right now to not go back to the owners originally, because there's other companies trying to buy up the land. I think as the governor, we should be protecting Californians at that level, regardless of if you're overriding some of the city's ordinances. And I think for special circumstances like a wildfire that's taken out large swaths of land, there has to be that capability for the governor to step in and say, hey, we've got to actually fix things. And that might mean bending your rules or breaking your rules a little bit to put it all back together. And then your rule can go back to being in place, and I'll go back to my home out of your city when we're done making the Californians okay. I think that's something that can be done. I think I want to say that that's something that Newsom would do. I don't know for sure, though. I know I would.
Good. So going back to your homeless idea, I like it. I did a study on 3D printed houses. It's a published
Mhm.
paper. I always push people who are in your position to make housing decisions to look into 3D printed houses. It's economical, it's sustainable, and it is affordable. So please look into that. We are way behind as a country in 3D printed buildings, and it will solve the housing crisis if people would just not want to make a massive amount of profit and be good people.
See, that's right there. Those two things. People want to make a massive amount of profit and, try to be good people. That is really the only thing we need to fix. People needing to make a massive amount of profit as opposed to being good, because that's the trade-off, right? Like, you can't be good if you really want to make a lot of money. I think we need to shame people about money more. Is really where it sits.
I think Tom is down for that. He is down for public shaming.
Right. Tom,
No, I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying, and it's refreshing, because sometimes we get on these platforms and we're speaking with politicians, and I'm just like holding on to my seat, like
You get Superman.
yeah, because people are in these situations, right, only because of corporate greed. We have such a um a threshold of class issues. Like, we have the uber rich, and then we have people that are poor, and that just need a little bit of help to get to just being a middle class person, right?
right.
And and the most hardworking people in this country are immigrants that are being attacked by this administration. And that's my only, that's one of the biggest things I would ask you, is how are we going to protect our immigrants that make this country what it is?
It's a great question, and one I can answer a little better, because it's less about the stuff I don't normally deal with, like finances and policies. So police escort. So all ICE activities would require police escort, and the police would help ICE and help anybody ICE was interacting with. If either side breaks the law, they get arrested. If both sides break the law, they all get arrested. They all go to local jail, and we deal with that first rather than ICE and whatever its issues were. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be to, when we first started getting ICE heavy in California, the city of Glendale said, we're not for this. They canceled their ICE contract and basically said, you can't rent our facility anymore, and they lost Glendale. I would make sure that every other state and county that has a facility for the federal government, and not just ICE, any federal government law enforcement grouping, we would give them their contracts back. And I would find a different way to make that city or county the money back that they're losing from the federal government as the governor. Whether that, and again, I don't throw around throwing favors lightly, but that would absolutely be a favor exchange of, I need you to close down your ICE detention center. You let me know what I need to do for the state to make that happen for you.
Yeah,
and we
because
would trade that.
we have to understand that ICE was invented after 9/11. When 9/11 happened, they were U.S. citizens, regardless of what race they were.
Right.
They were citizens of this country. So the boogeyman was created because of 9/11. So they decided to create an organization to crack down on something that happened from citizens of this country.
Right.
So the people that are being targeted are people that are just hardworking citizens. There's no reason for us to have ICE, right? We can if someone commits a crime, they're gonna have to deal with deportation anyway. So
Correct.
let's help them with their citizenship. Let's help them get to where they need to be. Now, if they break the law, help maybe give them some corrective action, but let's rehabilitate people, and
Yeah.
and if we have to bring them back to their country, let's do it safely and ethically and morally, right? Because if if we go out into the combat zone, right? And we happen to get into a conflict, we as soldiers, we have to treat our POWs with dignity and respect.
Yep.
We can't double tap. We can't, if they become injured, and we have to treat them. We have to make sure they're fed. We have to, make sure that they have their say they have like a religious preference, right? We have to respect that. You know, so we have people that are being picked up by ICE. They're not getting fed. Like they're not getting water. They're not able to pray to whoever they pray to. Um, their living conditions are horrible, and
Yep.
and if we would have did that shit, we be living with. So it's it's very disheartening to be a veteran in this country, to watch
I
an
agree.
agency that's supposed to, you know, sworn oath to the Constitution just like we do, to get paid twice as much as we would enlisting, to be able to just mosey around the country and do basic war crimes on our soil.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely disheartening was the right word. I we talked about the lives on Friday where I'm at the detention center. Um, and I make a firm habit of not kicking anybody from the chat, but being outside the detention center immediately gets me a bunch of MAGA people in the chat, right, throwing up the usual rhetoric. And my favorite one is always, where were you when Obama was deporting immigrants? And I was like, I was still right here, right? Like, well, why are you protesting? Well, because the ICE agents at that point in time weren't beating people on camera. They weren't running into people with cars. They weren't grabbing American citizens. Like, this is an aggressive, racially profiling, no due process ICE, which is not the ICE of the past. And not to say that ICE has always been perfect, but it had a purpose. Granted, since it was created, but it had a purpose. And so it's the methods that they're using now that are turning them into Yahtzees. I don't know what we're streaming on, and I don't want to get you in trouble on anything.
Yeah, I turned off TikTok.
Oh, good. All right. Well, then, yeah. I mean, they're acting like a bunch of Nazis is the problem, and that's the part where you're out and protesting. Look, I get that we have to have law enforcement and we have to follow rules and we have laws for things, but
Yeah, but that's what I told you before. We have law. You exactly. We have law enforcement, police.
Right.
We don't need all these extra agencies, taking our money, right?
yeah,
We have to pay them. How about we fix the police itself, right? Better, better train the police, right? So we can rely on that agency first before we bring more agencies into the fold.
yeah. I also think we need to update the immigration laws themselves. I mean, the immigration laws haven't been touched since the 60s. I think it's time that they get reviewed, that we change the processes to make things a little easier. We've also talked about modifying the immigration centers in California as one of our platform topics, which really can't do very much because California doesn't have the authority to change the immigration laws themselves, but we could work to speed up the process that the paperwork takes within our own state. So giving immigrants a place to come in that's safe, to process everything, making sure that they get legal advice on how to process everything, and then pushing that paperwork as quickly as it can so that people have their papers sooner and faster. I mean, that is a way to make sure they're protected.
Sort of, though. I mean, because we see an increase of ICE raids around the country.
Mhm.
Not only within California, we have veterans in Memphis. We connected with a veteran in Portland. So we have veterans in places that National Guard and ICE are deployed in large swaths. They're picking up people with green cards. They're picking up citizens. They're picking up nonviolent individuals. They're picking up children.
Yep.
They're leaving children on the side of the road. As a matter of fact, in a video I posted the other day, it was from your state. I I love your idea of police escorts, and this is the reason. I am a mom of a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old.
Okay.
And I was pouring through ICE videos to make a video for our TikTok to enrage people. That was the goal.
Sure. Clickbait. Got it.
And I think it worked extremely well because the video I ended with is of a woman in California speaking Spanish who was on the side of the road behind another vehicle. ICE had picked up the parents out of the vehicle and left the children on the side of the road.
Yep.
And as Tom said, as veterans, this is not okay. And as a governor, I am glad to hear that you will start to prosecute ICE under your state laws.
I wouldn't just say start to prosecute. I would almost add in enjoying prosecuting. Just to be fair.
Because what we're seeing, and I'm always very open about it. My grandfather is a World War II vet. He fought fascism. We did a video the other day on the tenets of fascism, how fascism starts from authoritarianism and then grows. And this is wild. We cannot be picking up moms dropping off their children. We cannot, as someone that works in the construction industry, be taking entire site-wide people off of their sites. We cannot be kidnapping children. There was a child in Minnesota that didn't show up to school for 2 days. That's when the school found out that the child was detained by ICE. And things of that nature is not what this country is about. As someone that, I'm like Tom, DHS came into existence after 9/11, but there's a lot of other agencies in this country that do the exact same work, and they do it much better and less violently. And if they cannot, they have a place in this country, but we do need to dismantle them, reorganize them, and get rid of everybody, because they have seemingly found the worst of society that have signed on for $50,000 bonuses to terrorize entire populations of people. And so as a governor, I would love and applaud and actually probably fly out to California for the first one when you prosecute an ICE for crimes against humanity, because this can and you have a large immigration populace in your state. And so what I liked Tom's questions about your measures that you're going to take to ensure more protections for the immigrant community. And Jesse shared with me, Tom, he is married to a Mexican American. And so, it affects him personally as well, because he worries about his children and his wife being picked up. And I, as a white woman in America, don't have to worry about being picked up because of my skin color. I do worry about being picked up because of my mouth. I have that going for me, but I worry about my neighbors. I work in the construction industry. 6 people that built the high school I just built have been disappeared by ICE. And we have Alligator Alcatraz in the state of Florida, which is committing crimes against humanity. And I encourage everybody who is watching this stream right now, call the UN. Call the UN in New York and report Alligator Alcatraz and report Pete Hegseth while you're at it, Admiral Bradley, and everybody else in the chain of command, including President Trump, for war crimes. And as Americans continue to call the UN and report them, maybe they'll do something about it, because we know our government absolutely is not going to hold these people accountable. So we have to allow the world to do it.
And also, if you go to Fight Against Fascism organization, or fightaagainstfascism.org, I'm sorry, we actually have a petition for crimes against humanity. So, and that goes to petitions.org. And you can sign a petition, and let's get as many signatures as possible so we can do what we got to do.
I will push that as well. I will say, Tom, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but your FAFO.
Yeah.
RG, right? Just to be clear.
Sounds like, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but I think it's clever.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta give my wife that shout out, because she's the one who put the name together.
Okay.
I just got fed up one day. I was like, look, I had to take a moment of leave from the activist community for a while, because I was facing felony charges for defending myself against a white supremacist. But after I got through all that, I came back and I was like, look, it's time to get my feet wet again. And we decided that we were going to have a rally in DC. That's when I met Katie. And it was against the erasure of marginalized veterans, and their historical accolades being taken off websites, statues. And we had different like the 442 regiment. We had when the Tuskegee Airmen show up. Like we were trying to give those accolades to those different veterans, and try to share history, because part of fighting fascism is understanding your history, understanding what other countries have gone through fascism, so we don't repeat that history, right? And that's where Fight Against Fascism organization came from, was to make sure that we're amplifying those marginalized voices, not just having a whitewash organization that a lot of orgs tend to do. So
right.
We love Tom. And because education matters. So let's bring it back to your platform for a second on education.
Okay.
Because my soon-to-be ex-wife has a PhD and is a professor, and so I always worry about education as a focal point. So what are your priorities for K through 12 education not currently addressed in your platform?
I definitely want to look at Common Core. I think it's a crappy teaching method. And my next door neighbor is a teacher, so I have a decent amount of recommendations about what needs to be fixed in the school systems. We just haven't written it all up yet. But we want to do a couple things. We want to forcibly include parents anywhere that they can be mandated to be participant. We want to start involving children, and this will touch on what we talked about earlier about kind of getting lost and then not pulling back until it does hit you or affect you. We want to get children involved in civic projects starting from middle school, so that as they're kind of going through that more mature part of schooling, they are getting to see the different parts of their community as well. I think this takes place a lot. My kids are both in high school now. I think this takes place a decent amount if they're involved in sports. But I think for a lot of children who don't get into those things or don't sign up for extra activities because they're afraid that they financially can't deal with it, or there are other reasons that keep them out of it, need to be engaged at least in the civics part of it to give them other options when they graduate, so that they're aware of what's going on in their area and their neighborhood. Because honestly, I don't think we prepare children enough for that now. Past that, we have talked about more trade tech coming in, because I would like to start having California produce a little bit more. We have no platform topics on production at this point, but we want to start making kids capable of doing those jobs again, kind of like plumbing and other things. We don't have enough trades, and we're definitely falling off with them. And then I think the only other thing for schools that we talked about was there is a push for higher education to be cheaper. And as I work for higher education, I think there are ways for us to do that that we are mismanaging currently. Is the very, very small way I'll talk about my job to not get myself fired before I become governor.
I will talk about your job for you as someone
Thank you.
that understands the university system. As someone that was married to a professor. So one thing I don't understand is she's not a teacher, she's a professor, she has a PhD in communication, is pay, equitable pay.
Yeah.
And when I say equitable pay, I'm going to put it to you like this. She makes 1/3 of what I make.
Come on.
I have a bachelor's degree in construction management, and she has PhD. And my potential earnings are much higher than hers are.
Right.
But if you look at other countries and the way that they structure their professor pay specifically for higher education, if you look at the Nordic countries, if you look at the European countries, the professors in the higher education fields are paid equitably and they make what I make. Not that I don't do something important for society. I do build schools. I think that is important. But I don't think that what I do is more important than what you and what my ex-wife does, is educating America. An educated America is a better America. And how do we retain educators? Is through higher incentives. And I know as governor, you would have to go through negotiations with the Senate, the faculty Senate, and go through the unions. So would you, as a governor, always ensure that professors are paid at least what they're worth?
I think we need to find ways to pay not just professors, teachers too, because
Oh yeah, absolutely.
right on Wendy's list is pay is super at the top. I think it's number 2. So I think yes, the answer there is absolutely. I would love to pay teachers more. I'm not promising anything because, again, order of house, I don't know where we're at with money for education, but I think education needs to get more money, specifically for California. One of the side goals, and I don't need to explain it to you. One of the side goals I have has been to broadcast the information I get from this, right? Like so that other people can see it and learn and grow, right? It's part of why I have the Invisible campaign up and everything. I think we've stopped trying to educate is really the direction that America has gone at this point. And I think California needs to lead the way in how it restructures itself to basically say, look, if the federal government is no longer working with us, then how do we change the direction of our state to function essentially without them? Right? Because that's the place we have to be at. And then as we figure out the rest of politics, and do we stop paying taxes to them at some point and other things. But my goal with California would be to get things back on track with the way that America should be, and then say, look, everybody else, here's our state that's already making the most money because we're organized. And yeah, it costs more here, but it costs more because we keep it nice, right? Like our environment is healthy. We pay for people. We let immigrants come in. We do all these beneficial things, which costs more. But we also still teach everybody. We want you to be educated. We want you to know what's going on. That has to start here in California and then start spreading from California. If we can create sustainable systems and show people how it's done, then they can copy them. And education has to be one of those as well, right? Like we need to bring up the level of intelligence, and not just intelligence, awareness for people so that they don't turn into people like me, right? Like the ones that step away or don't get involved until it actually affects them. I think that matters. So education is very big. And pay, in the final answer to your question, yes, should be going up.
I believe it should be. You know, teaching the youth and teaching higher education is what's going to turn this country around. And it's my firm belief. Let me ask you a position on something that I saw someone in the comments say that they're also from Florida. Hello, dystopian nightmare buddy. We have a problem in Florida that we see spreading across the state. What do you think about charter schools and school choice?
Oh, I hate that idea.
Yeah.
I absolutely abhor it. Yeah, no, I will not be doing that here in California. Public schools, right? Like, we have an obligation to teach our children all the right information and not subject them to special schools that they might not be able to afford. And then we're creating even deeper of a caste system of who was educated where. Not necessary.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I shared with you before we started, I'll share with everybody else. I went to private school my entire life. I am a Catholic. So I went to Catholic private school. But I do have 2 young children, so I care about the public education system immensely. And there is a lot of money leaving our public school systems right now in the state of Florida going to private entities. And it's literally just the privatization of our school system in the state.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then we saw it happen in Texas, and it is now spreading because we like to say in Florida, Trump made America Florida. And so, yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Well, it's the truth, like
It-
everybody came from Florida, and
Right.
he put a lot of them in his administration. So, welcome to our hell. But I absolutely do not want to see our education policies spread across the country in any manner, because we ban books here. We limit speech. We have a don't say gay bill. We have a bunch of dystopian nightmare bills. So I am glad to hear that about charter schools, because it is spreading across the country like wildfire. Charter schools in certain economies that allow it.
Right.
Yeah. So on a state level, how would you improve college affordability?
Somebody last night asked me if I could make it free, and I was like, I don't know the numbers well enough to answer that question. This is not like I don't want to answer the question. I do have to be careful if my answers are too specific to anywhere.
Yeah, because you work for a school, correct?
Yeah, no, on top of all the other things that make running this race hard for me, the minute I thought of the idea sitting down with HR and legal for an organization like where I work, it was a lot. And they were like, yeah, well, here, we're going to tie this one arm behind your back and then let you go out and run this race. And I was like, oh, thanks. I think we could target several areas in most higher education organizations. And I know the UC system better than I know the UCal system. But I think we could definitely minimize some of the housing stuff. We are trying to expand housing to continue to sell rooms and space to make money off of students, right? And that's just so that we can keep growing. So the state isn't far off in the education field, at least from some of our other developments, where it's all about just taking in more money so we can grow more money. I think that needs to be cut back and really focusing on educating students. And then I'd also love to see us utilizing educated students to reinvest back into the schools below higher education, because I don't think we're doing enough of that. Giving students discounts by maybe making them share knowledge on subjects that they've been taught already at a lower level is an investment where they could find savings that we could lower schools, that would save us money in other areas, that would allow us to reduce the cost of their higher education, if that makes sense, right? So I think because there's enough college students around to supplement some of that, right? Like, teachers we know are overworked and have classroom size too long, but if you had a college student with you every day that knew your topic or were working other fields or were just talking on their own topic, but it was taking some of that class time off your list for the day would absolutely benefit both parties and could be used, like I said, as savings that would then save somebody else money in a different field.
I like that idea. I think it's
Thank you.
unique. And I think it's very smart. To streamline your trade process, though, because I did hear you say that you wanted to up trade schools, which please, for the love of whatever God you believe in or no God. As someone that works in the industry, I've worked in the industry for over 10 years now, and there is a gap. Nobody realizes that the housing crash in '08 left a lot of people. We saw a lot of people leave the trades, and institutional knowledge left with them.
Right.
So now there is a massive age gap within the trade field specifically. So like my bosses are all 65 to like 68, and then you have my age, I'm 38, so you have like this group of millennials. And out of 1,000, I think it was like 1,200 workers I had on the high school, there was 5 people under the age of 25.
Yeah.
And people talk about the affordability crisis of housing and things of that nature. Well, it's going to get a lot worse, my guys, when they're like snatching entire workers off of job sites. Because I was told, my mom has a degree from Penn State. My dad did not go to college, but my mom instilled in us, go to college, you're going to get a good job. Go to college, you're going to get a good job. And I ended up joining the military, but both of her children are now in the trades, right? Because there is a large amount of money in the trades. And
Oh, yeah.
the labor shortage is at a crisis level. I sit in meetings sometimes about like how we are not going to have the trades we need within the next 5 years. So the cost of a plumber to your house is like $125 house call. And then it goes up from there. But within
Right.
5 years, it's going to go up to like $200, $300 because there's not going to be enough plumbers. So I applaud you on that. I think every state absolutely 100% needs to invest in trade schools, needs to stop the lie that it's not a good living, because it is.
Yeah.
Everybody I know that works in the trades, that owns a small company and does their own work. I work for a very large corporation. It's family owned, but it is a corporation. We need more trades, and we
Oh,
need
yeah.
to encourage children to go into the trades and to start small businesses, because even in Florida, in Jacksonville specifically, I have my plumbing company shirt on, but you look at like 8 or 9 large companies and it's owned by one large company. And so you're now every smaller company is being bought up by large conglomerates, and your everyday plumber is not your next door neighbor anymore. It's
Right.
some large company that owns 8 small companies because they've acquired them through company acquisitions.
Exactly. This is not a governor's question. I'm just curious because we're on the same time. I mean, I supervise the trades at work and a couple other groups, but what are you finding as the biggest lacking trade currently? Is it plumbing? Because I know you're in it, but electrical, like masonry. What are you finding in Florida you're running out of?
And all of them, to be real.
Okay.
I think masons are number one. So I'll put it this way, because we were talking about immigration. When I look at my trades that were predominantly immigrants, it is the trades that are the hardest working. So that is the concrete pourers, that is the steel workers,
Right.
that is the electricians, like that is the landscapers. And all of those trades I worry about with immigration being the fucking shit show it is today,
Right.
and ICE. But with an age issue. It's it's every trade. And I see the comment that the person works in renewables, and it's the same age group, right? We are going to have a large problem in this country within the next 10 years if we don't convince young people to get into the trades.
I feel like that's almost on purpose at this point, right? Like, you take away our ability to do productive work, and you take away our education that lets us learn how to do productive work or research anything new after that, right? It feels like the direction America is taking is completely backwards, right? Like, we want to roll it back, and I use the royal we, but I really mean a specific group of people really want to roll it back to a point where uh, we're just above cavemen, right? Like, we come out, we do whatever grunt work it is that we're supposed to do that isn't skilled anymore, right? Just bang your rocks and then go back to your cave, and that's what we'll allow you for. It feels very Fred Flintstone-y more than anything else.
It is, and I see the comment about remodeling a house, and there's this serious labor shortage all over the country.
Yeah.
And interestingly, MTG, I listened to her on a podcast about why she decided to resign and flip her stance on immigration, and because she owns a construction company in Georgia.
And it's not doing well.
And it's the leopards ate my kid, right? Like thing is, yeah, lady, what do you think is doing the hard manual labor?
Right.
Like when I first got into the trades, I went from the military to framing houses, which I don't suggest for most women watching. Probably don't do that. But that was what I did. And the guy that gave me my first job was a friend of mine I'd known for years. And he put me on a crew with all older white men. But every other crew was Hispanic. Like every other crew.
Yeah.
And so it's an immigration issue. It's a lack of younger people joining the trades, but there is a massive amount of money in the trades, and I encourage every young person I talk to about it. And if you're watching this and you're in the trades, join the ACE program. It is a nationwide program of construction professionals, architects, and engineers that are mentoring high school students to come into our industry. I'm a part of it in Jacksonville, Florida, but it is a nationwide program. I encourage everybody that's in construction to get involved with that to keep our industry going.
Hey, Katie, it just came up because since we got on technically at 7:30, it just came up saying that we have 13 minutes and 14 seconds left because we have 2 hours to stream with our current plan.
Right.
Got it. Thanks. So let's go over a few more. Let's go over what's missing on your platform.
Sure.
Right. And just because, and we'll go through it quickly, is that I noticed public safety and climate were not fully articulated yet. Are you working on those?
No. Climate is pretty well established right now with CEQA. I'm not planning on chasing anything with climate right now. I mean, I won't take away the laws that are protecting our environment either, but I don't plan to modify them currently. Now, once I get in office, if things are pitched, bills that are going to come up, I'll still have the say-so over anything coming across my desk, but anything new that's changing anything, I'll get a chance to review. So no changes there. Public safety, if we're not talking about police, which I guess falls into public safety. So the other thing with the police that we didn't talk about earlier because we were specifying immigration is I would, and I'm going to take a hit for this, I would partially defund our police. That is not getting rid of our police. California needs police officers because there are crimes in California. But we have large bloated police stations with a lot of dollar spend and a lot of lawsuit payments afterwards. What I would like to do is incorporate a second branch of the police force. We would start hiring community members as CSOs. in their local communities that would be given authority to carry out some capabilities, not as much as an officer. They wouldn't carry weapons, or at least not guns, and they would work with a social worker or someone else in part, and the social worker didn't necessarily have to come from the community, but the CSOs do, and they would patrol their community and fix issues and be a first response for police if they need to be called in with the specifics and the information already gathered. So if you just need a cop, you need a cop because he's carrying a gun and he can take somebody to jail. But past that, the CSOs should start being involved. And my goal would be to slowly then let the police force retire out. We're not going in and firing a bunch of police officers, but the goal would be to minimize police funding and increase social, interactive, safety, community funding, and having these officers patrol there. Now, CSOs could graduate up to becoming officers. We'd almost encourage that because they would have been trained to deal with the community the right way, create a good amount of relationships with that local populace, and then they could eventually become officers for those areas, which would be our practice. So for community safety, my goal would be to start adjusting how we deal with people in California. I think the law enforcement is a little excessive, and we have so many violations. We're costing our state an excessive amount of money in lawsuits because we have to defend our police over and over again. So
I like it. So I'm gonna ask you the most important question we ask every candidate when we're getting towards the end.
okay.
And it doesn't matter what office they're running for. We always ask this one question. How are you going to stay grounded to your constituents if you are elected?
I will still engage with them is the hope, right? We have talked about making this a more I will forego all my dinners with contributors of large funds. Since I've bypassed those, I won't have those dinners and dances and galas to go to. So my hope is to start spending more time in the communities around California. One of the fun things about this race in general has been driving around the state of California and meeting different people and going when I flew out here, I stayed in LA. I've been in LA. I haven't done anything, right? Like, I've been to San Francisco now. I've been to Sacramento now. I've been through a lot of different places. It's a lot of fun. And I think the point would be to keep doing that, right? Like, we need to hear and not just needing to hear it, but needing to speak the truth back to people, right? Being able to answer the question, no, right now we're actually good for our environmental laws. I don't see a need to change anything, has to be said out loud, not, oh, I'm in front of this group. No, I'll fix environment even more, right? Like, I'm running the government to make sure you're covered. We don't need to change everything, everywhere, everything all at once, right? Like, let's focus on real issues and get those things fixed. And I think that allows me to be a different type of governor as well, right? So that would be my hope.
I enjoyed the pushback of like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, oh, cool. Like good to hear it. So why don't you tell us next steps, where we can donate, and things of that nature.
All right. We had this discussion, but I'll say it again. So I do have a website. It's Alberti for Governor, the number 4, not the word 4, albertiforgovernor.com. There is a donation button there. For the love of God, don't donate to me if you are struggling with money. I don't want your money. I don't need your money. By the rules currently, the way they are still written, and I expect them to change at some point, just to be clear, you don't have to pay me money for me to win the election. You have to vote for me. You have to tell other people to vote for me. You have to convince them, or at least make them aware that I exist. That's what I need. To win, all I need is to get to the end of it and have people vote for me. So you can go to the website, you can read about me, you can ask questions. The invisible race is up there. There's a bunch of candidates that you've never heard of that are also on my website. And as I find more, I add them up there. I mean, I'm trying to make sure people know that there's options out there that they're probably never going to see. My TikTok account, which this may or may not be streaming on TikTok as well, is there. I have a YouTube account where we've got 2 of the kind of staged videos going, but we've got 6 more in the can waiting to be finished. But again, army of 2 technically. It's me and the guy that's running my financials. My Dungeons and Dragons tax accountant friend is running my campaign account as my treasurer, but we we're doing it. And we also have on camera the one forum that I was invited to attend accidentally. So you can check all those things out. And Tuesdays we do a live from 7 to 9 and we answer more questions like this. So if you want to talk to me in person, you can do it any week.
And that is something I did commend you on before we started the stream. You are one of the only candidates I've ever seen list on their website other candidates. And so I found it just touching, right? Is that there are 60 plus candidates in the state and that you took the time to list candidates that are not getting enough coverage. So I do commend you for that.
Thanks.
We close the same way every live stream we do. It's a little odd if you've never seen it. And I know we are streaming on platforms we've never streamed on. So if you're a veteran, you'll know what's happening. If you're not, you're going to think we're a strange group, and it's okay. So we do a safety brief at the end. It is usually at the end of every Friday in the military. You get a safety briefing with your command to ensure you don't do dumb shit. And so today's safety brief is going to start out the same way we do everyone. Don't beat your spouse, your dog, or your children. Drink water. Don't add or subtract from the population unless you mean to. Make sure that you are eating properly, taking care of your mental health, and taking all medicines. Make sure that you are protecting the most vulnerable in your community, especially as veterans. We took an oath to the Constitution and to the country, not to a party or to a man. Also, do not buy zoo animals and try and donate to them to the zoo if you are in possession of one. Do not do drive-bys of shootings in housing. Do not drink and drive. If you're about to crash out, reach out. And if you need a Uber, I always preach sobriety. It's not for everybody, but if I'm 13 years sober, so if you find yourself drunk and you cannot get yourself home and you cannot afford an Uber, please message our page. Any of our platforms, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, I will pay for your way home. I do not want you to not get home safe. And I thank you for your time, Mr. Alberti. Tomorrow, I welcome everybody to come back. We are having a special edition of our Civilian Sundays. Civilian Sundays, we normally let civilians ask veterans around the country anything they want to ask us about what we think about what's going on, what we're doing in our little silo of work, because we silo our work away from everybody, and how to connect to us. But tomorrow, I was given specific permission by our civilian coordinator, Hannah, to interrupt her Civilian Sunday. We are platforming a active Guard member who is deployed in DC who would like to have his voice heard. He is a brother in arms, and we want to hear him out. We also have some questions for him about his orders and what exactly he's doing in DC. He has been affected by Specialist Spectrum Sarah's death. It was in his unit. So we are going to platform him tomorrow night on Civilian Sunday, 8 to 10. And we are going to completely obscure his identity because as veterans, we know the trouble he can get in for speaking out. And so we hope that you will join us tomorrow night to hear from him and hear his side of the story. But Mr. Alberti, we thank you for coming on and we wish you luck, and we will continue to repost your stuff and boost you and hopefully get you into the governor's mansion.
Thank you very much, Katie. I really appreciate it. And Veterans 5051, I thank you.
Have a good night.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Good night.